morning. Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Lorene Tanaka. Now, it seems that there are problems people are facing with regard to autism insurance, and we are here today with Lou Erdashik. He's the Executive Director with the Hawaii Disability Rights Center. Thank you so much, Lou, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Tell us more about this insurance as it relates to autism.
Okay.
What is happening?
Well, what's happening is that more and more children, unfortunately, are being born with autism. And so you have an increasing number of children. That's a real problem.
Okay.
And the cost to try to care for these children is really, really expensive. And so so people are trying to find a way to get the coverage that they need, to get the treatment that they need for the children.
So the treatment or the therapy portion of it.
Well, exactly. I mean, for a long time, children that were born with autism were essentially doomed to a life of unproductivity, whereas in more recent years, they have discovered that there's a certain kind of therapy called applied behavioral analysis, which seems to be pretty effective. It doesn't necessarily solve everybody's situation, but in at least 50% of the cases, there have been noticeable improvements in both the behavior and the intellectual and cognitive functioning of the children.
That's high, 50%.
That's not bad odds at all, no.
Exactly.
I mean, considering that prior to that there was almost nothing, that's actually a pretty good success rate. And so
they can become productive individuals.
Well, exactly, right. I mean, so they can have a full quality of life. And so I think it's to me, it's very important to do that. I mean, how can we deny these children an opportunity like that when it's within our ability to do something for them? Yes.
You were saying 1 out of every 68.
That's the current statistics. I mean, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, a few years ago it was like 1 in 100, then it was 1 in 88. Now the current data is 1 in 68.
What is autism?
Well, it's what they call a spectrum disorder, and so there's a full range. And I mean, at the higher end of it, you have people that may be a little socially awkward, but intellectually are not that severely impaired. At the lower end, people exhibit. I mean, they could be. They're unable to communicate. They cannot, so they can't talk. They may be thinking, but they can't get their
It's like it gets trapped in the head and it just can't come out.
Exactly, and it causes a lot of frustration. And so sometimes they'll bang on the walls, hit their parents, and things like that. So it's a very frustrating situation for them, in part because they know that they have enough cognitive ability that they know there's something going on. So it's a very difficult situation, yes.
It's as though somebody taped your mouth and says, speak.
Right.
Tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, a little bit like that, right.
That's difficult.
So applied behavioral analysis will help them coordinate better. It'll improve their cognitive functioning. And so it does have good success. And so, but the problem is that it's not that cheap. They can cost.
Right. How do these families afford this?
Well, they don't. I mean, that's part of. I mean, some do and some don't. So the cost can range from maybe $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 per year. So, for your average family, I mean, as you can appreciate, parents are always torn between. I mean, you want to do everything you possibly can for your child. So if you have it, so the families of children with autism go through, I mean, a horrible time. I mean, from the first time you discover that your child is diagnosed with that, and then there's a feeling of hopelessness, and then all of a sudden you see that maybe there's something you can do. So the natural inclination is to get the money together, do what you got to do, and so families are doing that.
Yeah, but you're talking about another $3,000 and $4,000 a month extra to do that.
Which a lot of people just don't have.
Of course
And
not.
so if they don't have it, then nothing gets done, and then the child does not improve in any way.
So was there a bill in the legislature that was addressing this issue?
There was a bill this past session. There's been a bill for the past couple of sessions to try to address it, which would basically mandate that insurance companies provide coverage for these services, in particular for applied behavioral analysis, because other services that might be helpful to a child with autism might be covered either by the Department of Education, by some
maybe speech therapy and things like that.
Right. So that would be covered. I mean, if the child has autism spectrum disorder, they might be getting special education, and so they could receive that. They might be in the developmental disabilities division at the health department, and so there are certain things but nobody covers applied behavioral analysis.
So that's what the insurance part, you're seeking that for the insurance part to cover for these families.
Exactly, and about 35 states have passed laws mandating that this be covered.
And in Hawaii?
In Hawaii, we have not. No, I mean we've tried. The bills have been kind of kicking around for the last couple of years.
Why? Why is that? It seems like something we would, like you said, we would want to do.
You would think that this would be I understand that there's cost. I mean, but you would think that people would understand that this is an important thing to do, and the fact that 35 states have passed it, to me, makes me see that this is not just some crazy new idea that somebody's trying to experiment with. I mean, a lot of other states have done this. I think that there are concerns that people are afraid it's going to cost too much. The insurance companies have strongly opposed it. Because they're afraid that premiums are going to go up for everybody else. I think the way I would look at it is twofold. One is that the purpose of insurance is to spread the risk around so that nobody gets hit. You know, think of like the hurricane insurance fund, right? So this way, if your house gets wiped out, you're not broke. I mean, so the cost is spread around. So here, if the cost is spread around, it doesn't cost anybody individually all that much.
Right.
The other is that apparently the data from the other states seems to show that it has not significantly increased the premium cost for everybody else.
It has not.
That's what the data shows, right? And so that the fears that people have expressed do not seem to have been the reality.
How close were we to passing that bill?
Well, I thought we were pretty close. I mean, the bill went in a conference, and it went down to the last day. There was, the House and Senate had some different versions. There were some questions about should there be an age cap for the services. So, for example, would you cut it off at a young age or a teenager age? And these are legitimate issues that can be debated, because the intent is not that this would go on forever. I mean, you generally want to start the services when the children are young.
Right. Well, as soon as they're diagnosed.
Pretty much, right. I mean, as soon as you get it, I mean, the longer you wait, the less effective it's going to be. And if it's going to work, you should see some improvement pretty early on. So you shouldn't need it for that many years. So these were some of the kinds of considerations. There was a question of they wanted to cap it at $50,000 per year, and I think that was pretty reasonable. So
that would give the families a lot of relief.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think they wanted like a $300,000 lifetime cap, and that would be okay too. I mean, setting some reasonable parameters would be a way of controlling costs.
But to not have it at all.
Right, and so we thought that the bill was in decent shape, and then it's not quite clear what happened, other than I know that the insurance companies strongly opposed it, and I think that they may have gotten in there and were able to persuade the money committee chairs not to pass it. The subject matter committees, like the health committee chairs, were very supportive, and they were really trying to get it passed. In the end, I think the money committees may have just been too afraid of what the cost might be. It also has some potential impact upon the State Department of Human Services, because you have the private insurance market that would cover families that have private insurance. You also have a lot of kids on Medicaid here in the state, and so we're actually involved right now with the Department of Human Services, trying to get them to cover applied behavioral analysis under their Medicaid program. They don't. They were afraid that if this bill passed, that it would force them to do it. So you had the state and the insurance companies, the state administration. My understanding was that the department had tried to get the money in the budget, and even the governor's office did not support including that. And so you had the whole state agencies, plus you had the insurance companies basically not supporting this. You had a lot of families supporting it. You had a lot of data that would show that it's a good thing. In the end, what they did pass was a very, very scaled down version that would do an actuarial study to see what the cost would be, and then they would come back, and then they'll come back next year and see where it goes.
Oh, good. So you haven't given up on this bill, right?
Not.
You want to see it through.
No, the version that we thought was going to pass was going to have a delayed implementation date. So the bill would have passed now.
Okay.
it would not have kicked in for about a year and a half. And we
Giving
thought,
the companies time to do
yeah,
what they have to
give
do.
them time to kind of get it together and restructure their rates if need be. And they were going to do the study in the interim so that they might know what the fiscal impact is going to be. In the end, they decided to just do the fiscal study without committing themselves to actually passing the bill. So, of course, being in the advocacy community, we would have preferred to see something more passed. At the same time, I think you learn when you are in the advocacy community that things take time, and that you never really give up, and you keep you keep on going. And sooner or later, I mean, I worked at the legislature for a number of years, and I've seen that a lot. That basically, it takes a long time to get a bill passed. Most bills don't pass in the first year or two. People have to kind of warm up to the idea. And
well, you know, they say, like other issues, unless you are affected personally, like it's your immediate family or somebody that you know that's close to you, you don't understand really what these families are going through, or the children are going through.
And so I can understand the perspective of somebody else who might think, well, why should I have to pay a higher premium to, because of somebody else's issue, right? So I do understand that. I think the answer is that in a collective society, we all have to do that. It's like saying, you don't have any kids in school, but you still support the education system, right?
Exactly.
So I think, plus the other thing, I think the real thing to consider is that if you don't do anything about it, it's not like the problem goes away.
Yes.
It's not like these children disappear.
Yes.
What really happens is that they end up usually in the state system. They end up in the developmental disabilities.
I was just going to say, if they don't get the treatment, where are they going to end up, and who's paying for that?
The state, we pay way more. You're going to end up. The data shows that the cost over a lifetime is several $several million to take care of a child like that. So even if one were not compassionate, and even if you were strictly looking at it as a dollars and cents kind of an analysis, would you rather spend a couple $100,000 now than a few $1 million over the course of time? I think it's actually a smart investment. So,
it seems like a no-brainer there.
It really, to me, it is. I mean, if it wasn't an effective treatment, then I could understand the argument better. But given the success rate that it's demonstrated, it does seem like a no-brainer, because you're going to pay for these kids one way or the other.
Well, and we can look at what the 35 other states have done or are doing, or what they're facing, and learn from that as well.
Well, exactly, right. So we're hoping that this will still occur, but it may just take a little more time.